that's really like a Sesame Street alumni show in two ways, is for kids who've graduated from Sesame Street who are learning to read instead of just learning the letters and numbers. And it's also was created by, usually by people who are veterans of Sesame Street.
Yeah, you and Michael Frith, Norm
sure.
Stiles,
yeah,
Catherine Mullen.
Yes, all of us. And the characters are Muppet players, Peter Linz and Shane Barnhart. Some of them were on that before they went to Sesame Street, but a lot of them are doing Sesame Street now.
As I was rewatching, I saw that some episodes kind of dealt with certain sounds and words, like the EA in a word like feature, or the double O in a word like moon. So was every episode kind of based around doing a certain word sound?
Yes, in part. We always featured a word sound in every show, but we taught other things on the show, that are part of learning to read, like comprehension and vocabulary. But we organized the show around letter sounds because we wanted to make sure that over the many seasons, we dealt with every sound in the language. We missed a couple, but we got most of them. And there's a theory, I won't get deeply into it, but there's a theory that reading teachers taught us, and I think they're right, that kids learn to read best when they do a combination of learning the sounds, but using them in context. If you have a story that features EA sounds, you're going to be much more interested in learning the sound, and you'll learn it much better than if you just learn the sound in a vacuum. So we always featured a story, often a real book, but sometimes stories that came from mythology or fairy tales or that we wrote ourselves. And we always featured the main sound in that story and taught that sound that day. It seems to have worked. Kids who watch the show a lot seem to learn a lot about reading, which I'm proud of.
What a great show.
Oh, yeah.
I did actually some building. I went back to build a few things, costumes mostly, for the characters with Redesign Studio.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then I auditioned for it.
Ooh.
Thank God I didn't get cast, because the Cleo puppet was so heavy.
Oh.
I just, knowing how heavy that puppet was, I watched Jen in awe. And then I was adding more heavy costumes on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh God bless her. I hope she can do this, because I don't think I could have sustained it. You really had to be a monster strong puppeteer, and Jen is. And let's see. So I did some building, and I did some, every once in a while, I got a character, a monkey. I had some little monkey character.
Oh, I remember those things.
Yeah. So I was an extra puppeteer.
It was interesting. Actually, initially, I had auditioned way back when Between the Lines was starting. I auditioned for the part of Theo, the dad.
Oh, wow.
And they liked it. They liked what I did. But that was also when we were still doing Bear. And so with Bear being so popular and doing appearances, I told them it wouldn't be fair to you to try and juggle your schedule around like appearances and the shooting schedule. So I passed, and then they offered it to Peter Linz. But then I ended up being on Between the Lines as Lionel, Theo's son. And I took over for Anthony, who left. So I'm on the last two seasons. And those last two seasons we did in Wilmington. No, we did it in Arkansas. No, where was it? Where did we do it? Arkansas? Yeah, we did. No, Mississippi. God, we did it in Mississippi. Yes. And because at that point, Between the Lines needed additional funding. And so Mississippi Public Television, located in Jackson, Mississippi, they said, we'll provide the rest of the funding, but you got to do it here in Jackson. Because at that time, Mississippi had the lowest literacy rate in the country among adults. And the literacy rate was actually improving from adults watching Between the Lions. And so
Wow.
that's why they sponsored the last 2 seasons. So we shot the last 2 seasons in Jackson, Mississippi.
So from what I saw of your time of doing Lionel on Between the Lines, I noticed a little bit of a wardrobe change with Lionel. Was that your idea?
Yeah.
Was it Kathy Mullen's idea?
No, it was their idea. It was like Chris's idea. They decided that with Lionel that he's kind of like, we'll give him a different outfit. And so he has a baseball cap and he has a t-shirt. He went from a rugby shirt to having a t-shirt that has the number 42 on it. And the significance of that is number 42 was one, Jackie Robinson's number, who was the first African-American baseball player in the major league. And 2, number 42 is a reference to Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and answering the question, like, what is the meaning of life? And the answer is the number 42. So it's a nice book reference as well.
That sounds like something that totally sounds like something Chris Cerf would have put in there then.
Yes, exactly. So that's why Lionel gets to wear the number 42 for the last 2 seasons.
When Chris and I, he probably told you this story too. We used to, on weekends or a couple of times a week, we would go to a club, a bar, restaurant called Elaine's. We would have, some vodka and, we would talk and laugh and whatever it is. And every once in a while we'd say, we should do the next Sesame Street afterward.
Oh my God.
We would get drunk and, talk about doing another show.
Mm-hmm.
And the show that would be a follow-on to Sesame Street.
Yeah, that's how Chris described it, as those who have graduated from Sesame Street.
Right. And Chris in particular, and his mother and his father, his mother having worked with Dr. Seuss, Chris knew Ted, and reading was a big thing for him, beginning reading. And so one day we were at Elaine's one night, and we said, we came back to the subject, but now we said it more seriously. Maybe it was before we had a martini, I don't know. And we said, well, let's do some teaching reading. And yeah, but always with a show, you want to know, well, where is it set? What kind of a place do you want to set it? And we said, well, a library. And we said, yeah, but for a lot of people, libraries are boring. So we said, well, then we said, well, yeah, we'll make it interesting. We thought about the New York Public Library, and other libraries have lions in front. And we said, maybe it's a library that's run by lions. So, and then Chris said, it's called Between the Lions.
So that was Chris's idea, the name.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
If it's a pun, it's going to be Chris's idea. He is the best at doing that kind of thing ever. It was an interesting ride, that working on that show. The beginning was great, working with Lou and Kathy and Michael, putting it all together. And what happened was we decided, we had a germ of an idea that we wanted to do this, and we thought, well, we'll go to WGBH. We didn't want to do it at the workshop. We wanted to be independent of the workshop because of what was going on at that point in management, and we just didn't feel we'd get the right shake.
Okay.
At the time, and so we thought we'd go independent with it. And we partnered with WGBH, and it just so happened that Department of Education had a $5 million RFP, request for proposals, for a new children's program. And but the specs in the RFP, we didn't match those specs. So, but they liked what we submitted, and we got to give WGBH credit. They wrote the proposal. that's something that takes a very specific kind of expertise. We worked on the creative part of it, but they really put this proposal together. And so since we didn't meet the specs, they doubled the grant, and they gave us one, and they gave another show $5 million, and that started us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we got going. It was an expensive show to do.
I bet.
And what happened was we sold licenses for toys in order to pay for the show.
Ooh.
What they do when you do that kind of thing for toys and all that sort of stuff, when you license merchandise like that, they give you an advance. And so the advance money was used to produce the first 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
After the first 2 seasons, the advance money was gone.
Ouch.
Yeah. So WGBH had to scramble. We all had to scramble, trying to find money. We had to reduce the number of episodes from a substantial number. I think we did 55 the first season and 40 the second. And then there was a drastic drop. Eventually, I think it was Chris who made contact somehow with Mississippi Broadcasting.
Mm-hmm.
And they contacted, they had a foundation, I forget the name of it now, that was willing to fund further production if we did it down in Mississippi.
That's what Noel MacNeal had mentioned. He kind of forgot where it was, but
It was in Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah. What was it like to film there?
Huh?
What was it like to film in Mississippi?
It was great. I really loved going down there. Met some wonderful people. It was something that as big as this that they'd never done. So there was a learning curve for them, but they took it on. They were great. All the people we worked with down there. And it was fun to go down there. We all stayed at a motel with cooking facilities. It had a pool.
Nice.
We hung out, Peter Linz and what's her name? Oh, God.
Jen Barnhart?
Jen, oh my God. I mean, all of those people, what's his name? Did the Fleas.
Oh God, Fleas.
Oh God, his name always slips my brain. Never mind. For now, Jim Krupa.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, Jim Krupa, the master of puppet mechanisms.
My contribution was it was really fun. I was in very early meetings of coming up with silly ideas for characters, like very, very early weekend that we spent at Chris's house in the Hamptons, and we were just basically coming up with what would be fun. And that's where Cliffhanger came out of that,
Oh, you created Cliffhanger.
Not by myself. There was this group, me, Norman, Chris, and Mike and Michael Frith.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just laughing so hard at these particular weekends that we spent. But yeah, Cliffhanger, hanging from a cliff. That's
why he's called Cliffhanger.
And then again, this was a very collaborative thing of everybody being in the same room. Was that he could be rescued at any time by the people who are singing the song. They're in this helicopter singing Cliffhanger, and they could have basically gotten him at any time, and then they just go off. And there were all sorts of wonderful. I remember one of the ideas that I could not stop laughing was Sam Spud, Potato Detective.
I loved that one.
Sam Spud, and I still remember. I mean, I almost choked on whatever I was drinking, but it's.
Don't you just hate that?
Yeah, it's the Bogart voice saying it's a potato wearing a Bogart hat and talking like Bogart, saying, "She came into my office. She looked like a real tomato. In fact, she was a real tomato," which So that was.
Well, I did not know that that was a potato as a kid. I had no idea what that was. All he was to me was just this guy in a suit that had no face.
Yeah, Sam's just like Sam Spud. When you think about it, a private eye, a potato has many eyes. So but yeah, that was, and I was so busy with Sesame Street also, that I came in to work on developing just the beginning, but I didn't write any scripts for it. I was at that wonderful creative thing where we just were able to brainstorm. So it was great fun to be working with Norman, Chris, and Michael Frith together.
Kathy Mullen and Michael had decided they wanted to do different projects, and so they were leaving the show. And so Leona they called for an audition for Leona, and I went in and I made sure I asked Kathy if it was okay with her, because she's a very, very dear friend of mine. If it was okay if I auditioned for Leona, that I, if I take it over, would she be all right with that? And she said yes. And then I went and auditioned, and I knew the character well. I love Kathy's characters, so I did my best version of Kathy doing Leona. And I was leaving and I'm thinking, oh, I don't think I got it. They're going to get someone else. And before I even was out the door of the building that I was auditioning, and they called me and told me, come back in, we want you to do the part. So I was very happy to get it. And, we did, I think, 2 seasons in New York, and then we moved out and then about 4, 5 seasons out in Mississippi. At Mississippi Public Television, and those were all super happy days. It was Tim Lagasse, it was Peter Linz, it was Jen Barnhart, myself, Heather Ashe, Jim Krupa was there for part of it. It was just fun. It was just a super fun group. The other super fun group like that would be Allegra's Window.
And it kind of sort of makes me sad that show was brilliant.
It really was, yeah.
Brilliant show. I love that show so much. It was such a wonderful, wonderful show. And why we couldn't keep it on the air was just sad to me. I mean, we should have been able to. It was, again, it was, puppeteers were wonderful. You're still my friends. And, Jen Barnhart, who played the
Cleo
lion, she does Sesame Street a lot, and there's a studio that's actually down not very far from my apartment where they do a lot of shooting, green screen shooting for Sesame Street. Whenever she's shooting in that studio, she stays with me at my apartment.
Oh, that's really sweet.
When I say they're my friends, they're my really good friends.
I believe you, yeah.
I love them all. I really do. It's been wonderful.
No, you know what? Kathy and Chris and Norman, it was such a fun audition because it didn't even feel like an audition. It was just they got some friends together at Chris's house in Manhattan, and we just they did table reads, and Kathy acted as kind of puppet captain, and she said, "Okay, so Peter, you read for Lionel, and someone else you read for Theo, you read for Cleo, and then oh no, we'll read a different script and we'll switch it up. Now read for this character." And so we just kind of saw who fit with what, and and then after a couple of sessions of those of reading a bunch of scripts and taking turns, everybody doing a different character, a few weeks later we did workshops actually with puppets and did the same kind of thing and tried out the different characters. And I really wanted to be Lionel. I was really gravitating towards Lionel, but they wanted me to do Theo, so I did Theo, and I'm glad because I've had such a great time with him.
Cheryl Blaylock told me that she actually auditioned for Cleo, but she's super glad that she didn't get it because she feels as if Jen Barnhart is stronger than she is, because they seem like really, really big puppets. Like as I said, we only just hear, well, some of us anyway, only just hear the voice. We don't think about the physicality of it. But like, are those puppets actually like that heavy?
They are, but I mean they're really pretty light for their size.
Okay.
It's kind of built out of lightweight material. However, that being said, yes, they're very heavy. Of course they are. There's a lot of fur. and heavy. Yeah, they're pretty big and heavy for sure. They are. Yeah, and I mean anything gets, even something that weighs only a couple pounds gets really heavy. You hold it over your head long enough.
So what was it like working on Between the Lions? That's a show that gets brought up on this podcast quite a lot because I've had a lot of guests who have been on that show.
Again, absolutely terrified. However,
Why was this one terrifying?
well, because you're working for Kathy Mullen and Michael Frith, and they are legendary in the business, and they are very exacting and yet supportive at the same time, which was so great. And of course, Peter Linz, the usual suspects. I was kind of a day player here and there, but they had a pretty solid cast. They tried not to stretch out too much to get too many people. Again, Jim Krupa was on that team. Tyler, Peter, Tim, Jim Napolitano. And they asked us, they had seen my company do a thing at the Henson Festival. It was a piece that we would call Mungo. And it was just a little green demon guy who danced to a James Brown song. And it was like I always called it like a little dessert. It was barely 5 minutes long, and my motto was too short to suck. And we would do it, and I forget who. I think it was Kathy who asked us to come and meet with them, and we met with Michael Frith and Kathy, and we developed a character who was a guy who lived in the jungle, and this elderly couple adopt him and bring him inside and like dress him up and clean him up and everything. But then the jungle starts to die, and it's Ruby Dee and Ozzie Davis are the couple. There's these like legendary actors, and it just, again, it kicked on. It was just beyondo, and we were doing really long days. And Kathy is a very supportive, and she's just amazing on set. That's what I'll say. She's a force of nature, and she knows like every corner of every shot and where it's going to cut and what's going to work and what's not going to work. She can do 20 puppets. She can do 2 puppets, and it's all amazing. And I was way out of my league again. And we did it. We did a long day, and it was one of those moments where I felt like someone trusted me with a lot of responsibility, because they were interested in getting people from different areas of like Jim Henson used to do, let's watch The World of Puppetry. What was the show called? I forget now. But he would go out and shoot video of people doing stuff that wasn't on TV, like Bruce Schwartz and lots of other people, Moominchance and all that kind of stuff. And so it felt like she was trying to do that too, to support people like us who were doing live, weird but good-looking stuff. And I don't know, man. Again, I was way out of my league, and somehow it worked out. The cut looked good. She still trusted me after that to hire me for a couple other jobs doing no strings. So,
oh, that's great.
Yeah. She's well, they both are. And to work with Michael Frith, I was still like have a copy of his drawing because he wouldn't give me the drawing of the puppet we designed together, kind of. He was nice enough to just like share drawings with me.
That's great.
Yeah, for me, that was just like, oh my God, I can't even believe this is happening.
A lot of very creative, very intelligent minds went into developing that one. And it's one of those shows that kind of ate itself to death because there were so many experienced folks who had been along the ride for so many other things that like they had the ideas for the toy designs and everything they were going to do. And they put all the toys on the shelves at about the same time or shortly after the show premiered. And the way the retail cycle works, by the time people actually knew about it and were watching the show and were interested in buying the toys, which is part of what funds the next evolutions of a show that's on public broadcasting, it had been through too many 13-week retail cycles, and all the toys were on the sales shelves, and the retailers weren't ordering anymore because they weren't selling. Mm-hmm. So by the time they were a high-ticket item, they looked like they didn't sell and nobody was making them anymore. So it's almost like they got too ahead of the game, brought the toys out too early, so that even though it was a very popular show and a lot of kids would have loved to have the stuffies and the games, they didn't align with the way the world worked. And so kind of sad. That's a show that should have kept going full force for a long time.
And you got a regular in that, Dr. Nitwhite.
Mm-hmm. He was a lot of fun. And again, that comedic relationship, the duo thing with Tim Lagasse, was a lot of fun because he's a very strong performer, a very strong comedic performer.